My guest today is a former producer at Universal Studios Production Group and holds a degree in entertainment business and film from Full Sail University. He has over 15 years of experience in the entertainment industry and with more than 25 credits to his name. In 2012, he founded Paper Street Pictures, where he's written, directed, and produced a string of genre-bending films. In 2014, he served as executive producer on the award-winning cult hit Starry Eyes, featuring a powerhouse performance by former What's Under the Bed guest and friend of the show, ALEX ESSOE. As director, he released his first feature, the psychological thriller Camera Obscura for NBC Universal, followed by the cult hit horror comedy anthology Scare Package for Shudder, and the Cowboys vs. Witch horror western The Pale Door. His amazing follow-up to Scare Package 2 RAD CHAD'S REVENGE, is available now on Shudder. He's also prolific as a producer with Old Man, directed by Lucky McKee. Dropping last October, November saw the fantastic Blood Relatives premiere, written and directed by frequent collaborator NOAH SEGAN. Scare Package 2 landed in December, followed by Sorry About the Demon in January. There was a premiere of A Creature Was Stirring last week, starring a friend of the show, SCOUT TAYLOR-COMPTON. There's the award-winning feature, The Artifice Girl, on deck for March, and SHELBY OAKS set to release in July. This is an incredible time for Paper Street Pictures and my guest, writer, producer, director, ARRON B Koontz. ARRON, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Oh my God, that was amazing. I mean, what an intro, that was, I forget. You just said all that stuff. I forget. Oh yeah, I did that too. But wow, what a pleasure to be here. And yeah, you've had a number of my friends on your show before. And so when you guys reached out, I was like, I knew all these people. This is great. And I just think it's really cool what you're doing. So, and again, best background ever, Rad Chad's card, the shirt, front rack shirt, everything. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You were born in Indianapolis, Indiana, and you moved to Florida when you were 12 years old. What was your childhood like in Indiana before the move?
It definitely wasn't as a horror fan. I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies, so I had to kind of find this stuff on my own, but was very creative. I loved writing. I didn't think that writing movies was even a possibility. So that wasn't even a thought in my head. It was just, I think some of my teachers in school said I was good at it. So I was like, oh, okay, well then I'll keep doing that a little bit, which is, again, credit to just what a little encouragement could do for someone, and how far that can go. But yeah, I just love movies, and that was something I did with my friends all the time. That was a big focus for us. And then moving to Florida, was kind of getting that junior high era and high school and all that. And that's when things really started to cement, and my love for, genre films and horror films in particular kind of took it a new level. But yeah, no, I mean, my mom would not let me watch anything. So I had to sneak around. My grandmother got HBO for free. So like back in the day, normal cable networks, you could get, like, it would just show up, like the channel would just show up, and overnight then they would show horror films. So I would bring these tapes in, and old VHS tapes, I'm dating myself even more here, but and then we would record them overnight, and then I would come back the next day and watch whatever weird horror film was there. So that was kind of like my first education, into horror at a very young age, 7, 8, 9 years old. Yeah.
As young as you can remember, and before the influence of movies, what was the thing that scared you the most? Was there a monster under the bed or a ghost in the attic?
It was aliens, and honestly, it's still aliens. I gotta say, like that has stayed with me the whole time. I think there's just something. I saw a movie when I was really young, and it wasn't that the movie scared me. It was just like the idea of it. It was called Communion, and it had Christopher Walken. And it's an alien abduction kind of film. And there's this scene where these aliens are like behind on the edge of his bed, and they've got those long hands, the big gray eyes, or the big eyes and the grays, as people would call them. And that scene definitely freaked me out, but after that, it was just thinking that this was possible. It wasn't like a scene in a movie scared me, and then I thought of that scene and it scared me. It was more so, well, maybe there really are aliens. Like I couldn't logically, I knew how I was starting to understand, because I was interested in science and astronomy to some degree, And I started to understand just how big the universe was. And then that's scary, and it's still scary right now. It's still scary to me, like thinking of how big the universe is and how small we are in this mortal plane, as they say. So yeah, I mean, that kind of freaked me out, and aliens still kind of freak me out, I gotta say. Yeah.
Many kids are first introduced to horror through fairy tales like Billy Goat's Gruff or Hansel and Gretel. Was there a particular children's story or fairy tale that scared you or fascinated you as a child?
It's interesting because I don't think I ever realized how much fairy tales were horror related, especially growing up, like you hear about them. And I've actually got a project based on some lullabies in that same space because of that. But, God, I would have to say, like, what really started to kind of mess me up a little bit, if you will, would just be it was really stories my friends told. Like, we would get around and we would kind of we would try to scare each other, so we'd come up with opportunities to tell a scary story around a fire, like that kind of cliched scene. Like, we did that as kids. And then I would have nightmares, of those things happening. And then the movies, I always was kind of able to separate them, from what scared me and what was there. But yeah, there was just this the home invasion type stuff that was there would kind of scare me, if my friends would say. But then I'd say the first, like gateway horror, if you will, was the Goosebumps books. Definitely some there. And there's also a show called Erie, Indiana. And I love that show. I grew up in Indiana. So as you mentioned, so, just seeing, even though the show didn't really take place there, I just thought that was tied to Indiana. So it was more special to me. And, and it's that kind of like trying to figure out, where this stuff was, and these types of, gateway horror stories with kids, running on a bike away from ghouls and goblins and ghosts. And I just, that was one of my first experiences of, oh, this can be fun. And in a weird way, I'm still chasing that because I want the horror to still be fun today. Like, that's a big part of it.
Around 12 years old, you relocated from Indiana to Florida. A crybaby bridge is the nickname for a common urban legend where a mother and baby have perished falling from a bridge, and then locals claim to hear whispers of a crying baby or to see the ghostly apparition of the mother haunting the area late at night. The Avon Railroad Bridge was built in 1906 above White Lick Creek along County Road 625, about 15 miles outside of Indianapolis. There are reports of a worker killed during its construction and a woman carrying her sick baby crossing the bridge at the same time as a train. She leapt from the bridge to save them, but the fall killed them both. Residents claim the construction worker, the baby, and the woman all haunt the bridge. Local superstitions say it says to honk your horn when driving under the bridge to drown out their sorrowful cries. The Sunshine Skyway Bridge opened in 1954 and spans the mouth of Tampa Bay, less than an hour from your childhood home in Florida. It was a notorious spot for suicides due to its height, and in 1980, the central span collapsed, killing 36 people when the bridge was struck by a freighter. Motorists report seeing a blonde hitchhiker, and if they pick her up, she will cry as the car approaches the top of the span. The driver will try to console their passenger, only to find she's vanished. This is another common urban legend called the vanishing hitchhiker, and it exists all over the world. The oldest known report of the vanishing hitchhiker was reported by a priest and two farmers in February 1602 in the West Gothland province of Sweden. It was, with some investigating, I was able to determine this would have occurred February 3rd. It was a Sunday.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I didn't know that the Sunshine Skyway story. I hadn't heard that before. I mean, I've driven across that. My mom still lives there, and I drive across that bridge all the time. And I've never heard that story. I have heard the story in Indiana, though, of that bridge. Yeah, that's a thing that I had heard, but that wasn't the way I remembered it. But it's also probably because I remembered it wrong, or somebody, these stories get passed around, so many times and get tweaked and all that. But that's fascinating.
Yeah. Had you heard of any other urban legends or ghost stories other than those?
In any, I mean,
Yeah.
yes, I definitely have. I mean, there's one that's a really silly one that's in Scare Package 2, which is the 3 Men and a Baby ghost legend. That was a thing when I was in junior high, scared me a lot. And we would rent the movie to watch it and try and see that. And that's why Jed and I decided to kind of go with that concept. But I'd have to really think about it. I definitely know a lot of urban legends now, but it's hard to know if I knew them then or if I've learned them later, especially because we're constantly, especially like as a producer, I'm constantly reading about all these stories. And it's like, when was the first time I heard that or not? I don't even know anymore. They all blend together. Yeah.
Speaking as a storyteller, do you believe urban legends like these originated from actual events, or are they more likely part of some shared archetypal narrative meant to convey a broader moral lesson, like a modern fable?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was raised in like a Christian home. I don't practice anymore, but I think a lot of those were based off of this, it's a morality tale. It's a way to teach kids, what to do and what not to do and scare them off from this and whatnot. So I think there's definitely a ton that's there, but there is a truth to some of it. I mean, there are things you can trace back and you can find things and these morsels of really, because crazy, reality is stranger than fiction, right? So this stuff happens out there. And I mean, I have, deep dove, the lead in The Pale Door, Devin Druid, him and I have talked a lot about the Mothman prophecy stuff and what was found there in that bridge. That's an even scarier bridge and everything that happened. And that stuff's fascinating to me. Like there's clearly something happened. Like I don't think that's a morality tale. I think something happened there. So I think there's an amalgamation of both. There's a mix of both of these that can kind of happen, but it's fun because I know, growing up, like I said, in a Christian home, I definitely was taught them as a way to scare me, away from doing the bad things. Like I'm not going to touch that, go there, don't go out at night, don't listen to your parents, that kind of stuff, those things, which
Yeah.
is good. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. As you said, you were raised in a strict Christian household where horror movies were prohibited, and there were restrictions on music too. I read your mother caught you with a Smashing Pumpkins CD and took it away. To paraphrase a line from Jeff Goldblum, horror finds a way. I've identified 3 pivotal moments in your childhood that I think set the stage for your horror tastes to come. Going to the drive-in to see Howard the Duck, but sneaking Freddy Krueger instead. Too scared to touch your slice of Tombstone pizza while watching Alien at your friend Matt's house. And 3, generating a young horror education using your grandmother's VCR and free HBO, which you had said earlier.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, you have done your homework, man. That is crazy. Yes, those are truly like those pivotal moments, and like in those tapes, when I would get those tapes, and because you're right, it was, and I will say, I think it was Howard the Duck. I could be confused. I've said that, but somebody told me they weren't out at the same time, so I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I turned around, when I would sit up in the moonroof and turn around, and I was so scared by the images on Nightmare on Elm Street. But then I remember when I was making those tapes, from my grandmother's house, I was just digging for gold, hoping to get a Nightmare on Elm Street movie the whole time, because that was my only way to get them. I didn't have access to go get them or see them anywhere else. So I was just hoping, but the luck of the draw. And it finally happened. And I remember, I think it might have been Dream Master or something, which is unfortunate because it's not as good as some of the others like Dream Warriors and whatnot. But I remember going into I had a walk-in closet and putting all the, the shirts around me and bringing the TV in, because if my parents caught me, I was done. And I was so scared though. I was just so scared watching that. And yeah, that and the alien situation with Matt, you're right, Matt White in Indianapolis, Indiana, over on Lyndhurst Drive. That was a amazing night, and so much of those moments, you're completely right, have shaped the way I just not only just what I want to write and as a storyteller, but just the way I look at movies. It just was so riveting and so fun, and I didn't know you could feel that way, when you're watching something, and it just kind of changed the way I looked at all of them completely.
You attended Durant High School in Plant City,
Oh my
Florida, home
God.
of the Cougars. There, you were on the yearbook staff and staff for the school newspaper, the Paw Print. What were you like as a teenager, and how much of your high school experience do you think informs who you are today?
I can't believe you found that photo of me. Oh my God. I mean, yeah, I think I'm like cutting something for like the newspaper or something there. And I had the long hair and probably a choker. Oh, yeah. That was a time. I can't believe you have that. That's amazing. Wait, what was the question? I was just so I got so like I can't believe you had that for a moment.
What were you like as a teenager, and how much of your high school experience do you
Oh
think
goodness.
informs who you are today?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. I was just in shock. I had to come out of the shock state here. Uh, I mean, I think it was, in high school, I don't think I knew I was trying so hard to fit in that I don't think that I really knew what I was going to do. It was like I thought this was a group, and I was desperate to be liked and desperate to have somebody kind of the right table to sit at lunch, like at the cool lunch table. Like that's I wanted to get to this one or this one, and I was into punk music at one point, was really into all that, and then I was into like then I worked at like Abercrombie and Fitch. I worked there in the mall. I think that was part of that era. So it was just like ridiculous stuff where I think I was just trying to figure myself out, because it's so hard. It's just so hard. But movies though were my escape. Like that is the one thing. Like that stayed through. And my friends and Sean Talley, who went to that same school, and I knew him when I looked as ridiculous in that photo. And he's now a partner with me at Paper Street. We both, we would go every weekend, and we would watch movies. We'd see like 2-3 movies back to back to back. And it just was, no matter what was going on or how much I hated school, because I didn't really like school at that time and everything. But I like to learn. I did like to learn new things. I just the structure of it for me, was difficult. And I get why it's difficult for a lot of people. But movies were it. They were just everything. And it was such a special thing to go to this AMC Regency 20, which is in Brandon, Florida. And and I remember when they first got the stadium seating, that was a big deal, and everything. And when I was even 15 or so, and I'm sneaking into our movies and stuff and doing all that, I mean that was just such an exhilarating time. So that was my peak. But at school itself, I don't know, I was just trying to get by. I was a nerd. I didn't know what I was doing. All this. I mean, I didn't even have great grades. I'm a smart person, but I didn't even have great grades in high school. But I scored really well in all the tests, and had a really high SAT score and things like that. But it's just, that was my, me. I was a little different in that way. But I can't believe you have that photo anyway. And you printed it out and made a thing. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I mean, other people in your family have to see that now, so I apologize. Yeah.
Your plans after high school were to become a doctor. In fact, I read you traveled to Haiti as part of a program for those studies, but that all changed in January 2000. What happened when you saw Paul Thomas Anderson's movie Magnolia?
This is amazing. You're the best, by the way. Yeah. So I thought I was going to be a doctor because I thought that's what I was supposed to be. Again, just like myself in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I loved movies. I knew that I loved aspects of it. I knew that I was a decent writer, but that did not come together. So I was like, okay, I scored really well on my SAT, and my parents said I should do this, so I'll be a doctor. And like, that was it, but yeah, it was, 1999 was this pivotal year for me because I was pursuing, normal careers, if you will, and what I was going to try and do, and in high school and whatnot, and that year I saw a number of films, and Fight Club and The Matrix and even American Beauty, and these movies were just so. I think it's the greatest year of film in my lifetime, and possibly ever. I mean, I think it's really, really up there. And but when I don't know what it was, but like Magnolia It's 3 hours and 17 minutes. You've obviously heard this because you've done the research, but I sat there, watched the whole thing. My friends were leaving and I stayed through, and then we were getting ready to go to our car and I said, I have to go watch it again. And I watched Magnolia a second time. So I spent like almost 7 hours, watching this like slow movie. Like, it's not The Matrix, which I saw like 3 times in the theaters, but it was different. Like there was something that was happening that Paul Thomas Anderson was doing in his story that just I didn't get it. I wasn't smart enough to get it then, but I wanted to get it so bad that I just thought, I was like, who came up with this story? And it was that mixed with like some things I had read and known about Steven Spielberg and Jaws. And it was like, this is what I have to do. And it became the movie that informed, my passion, moving forward. And when I finally said that I'm done with this, I'm going to go try and make movies. And that was completely due to that screening of Magnolia. Yeah.
You were accepted into a screenwriting program at UCLA, but you turned it down to attend Full Sail University instead. Full Sail University is a film school with its campus located in Winter Park, Florida, where the seasons range from summer, still summer, chilly summer, and almost summer. At Full Sail, classes can last 4 to 8 hours. Between projects, students catch up at the fishbowl or grab a coffee at the treehouse. If they're not on campus, they may be stuck in traffic in Cimarron Boulevard, grabbing a public sub for a quick bite, or blowing off steam at a UCF party. You would have attended school with Adam Wingard, who went on to direct a segment of the anthology VHS, You're Next, and Godzilla vs. Kong. Another classmate was E.L. Katz, who went on to direct and produce 6 episodes of the horror series Channel Zero, created by former What's Under the Best guest and friend to the show, Nick Antosca. What were you like as a student, and do you believe film school is necessary to produce or direct movies?
Oh, that's so crazy. You're taking me back to memory lane there with my time at Full Sail. Yeah, and I mean, and look, and I wouldn't have chosen Full Sail if it wasn't for, I was in a relationship at the time and I followed that rather than, but it's okay. It worked out, was there, and Adam and Evan, were wonderful. And it was, I was an overachiever. I will say, like, this was where school changed for me, because it wasn't school anymore. Like I was doing what I wanted to do. And I just ate it up. I mean, I lived and breathed it. So if I still kind of have, I have a work ethic now that I'm very proud of. And that's why we're able to make as many movies as we do, so that I knew that I had a limited time where I was at this school, and we had access at that time to, tech that no one else had. So we had access to cameras that other schools didn't have. We had access to editing equipment that other schools didn't have at the time. So I was like, well, I'm going to take advantage of every minute I possibly can of this. And I did, so I think that some people, and I've talked to some after, were like, yeah, it makes sense. You were a little do-gooder. I was like a very anxious, very, I put myself out there. Like I worked, I took it very seriously. Let's put it that way. I'm definitely a laid back person. But when it came to this, it was like, this is my opportunity. I have to impress everyone at all times. And I have to learn as much as I can, because I can't afford to go back, so this has to be it. So I looked at it as an opportunity, and I definitely, and I think I took the most advantage of it as I could, and you, as you probably know, led to an internship and some other things that happened after that. And I think part of that was work ethic that I had created at Full Sail. But it wasn't, again, it wasn't hard, because for the first time in my life, I was working towards something that I really, really wanted to do, and that made me so happy. And when you're that happy doing something, it just doesn't feel like work. And that started at Full Sail, started even with, getting graded papers. I go back to Full Sail and talk all the time. I love it. I love them there, and but it's not for everyone. You get what you put in. And I knew that early on. I could coast by and they would graduate me, or I could take advantage of every aspect that they had and make this the most that it can possibly be. And that was my choice. And I and I think maybe it shows a little, I don't know, but anyway, yeah.
After graduation, you were anxious to take any production job that would land you on set. You worked as crew on shows like Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Too Fast, Too Furious, and The Punisher, but being a production assistant can be hard. For nearly 10 years, your film career was sidetracked as you found success managing quality assurance and testing for gaming companies like Zynga, who created Farmville, and Entertainment Arts, who are responsible for Madden NFL, Red Faction, and Destroy All Humans. However, this work brought you to Austin, Texas, and it was here where you met and became roommates with fellow Full Sail grad Cameron Burns. Faced with a decision to relocate with your company to San Francisco or accept a severance package, you chose to remain in Austin and used severance to create Paper Street Pictures with Cameron. The company adopted the motto "Horror with Heart." On August 11th, 2012, you began filming your first of several short films called Malevolence. It was a Saturday. You covered the white walls of your friend Alex Essoe's house with fake blood. Did the red ever come off?
That's a no, it never. The ceiling to this, I mean, look, I don't know where the house is now. I actually know where it is, but Alex doesn't have that house anymore. But when they left, because they were just renting, the blood was still in the ceiling, and he got deducted out of his deposit because of it. So we could not get it out. We could not get it out. But yeah, that's the case.
The Paper Street Soap Company was the name of Tyler Durden's business in the movie Fight Club, and there's also a special thanks to a Paper Street quilt company in the credits for your short film Honor Student, filmed partly at a Goodwill store in Lamar Oaks in Austin. Where did the name Paper Street Pictures come from?
Well, you are right. I mean, I do have a Fight Club, bar of soap tattoo. Well, so it's two things. I mean, one, that 1999 year, right? Obviously, it was pivotal, and Fight Club being one of those movies. I do think, by the way, just as an aside, I think that movie is very misunderstood now by a lot of men who take it to mean it's something different than it is. But anyway, I still think it's a brilliant film and book. But so obviously, Paper Street Soap Company was part of it, but it's also a Paper Street, exists on a map, but does not exist in real life. And I just thought that was an interesting way of looking at films, that, they kind of exist. Like, you're saying this thing takes place in the real world, but it really doesn't, and you're using real world things. So I thought there was a unique analogy to that in some way. And also in writing, you're kind of creating these streets and places and whatnot, and they're not necessarily real. They're paper streets as well. So yeah.
Hold on, this is going to take me to a second to pronounce. The El Chupacabra, I did it for first try, is another short film you directed, and it's your first collaboration with actor Jeremy King, who appears in your first feature film, Camera Obscura, as well as The Pale Door and both Scare Package films. What are the Buckley Chronicles?
Oh, goodness. You were the most researched person I have talked to, and I love it, and it makes me so happy and giddy. Yeah, so Jeremy King, I actually met him for one moment. I just produced, not directed, but I produced this film. It's not even IMDb, so it's probably didn't see it. Called D Grade, where Jeremy was a bike cop, and he auditioned and was just ridiculous and so funny, and we were just laughing the whole time. We actually made a little side movie within that short film. It was a short about bike cops. It was like a little, cops type show, but with bike cops, and it was all a joke and everything, and it was fun. But I thought Jeremy was hilarious, and then I wasn't very happy with Malevolence. I was like, this doesn't feel like me, but there's some things that are cool, and we had some cool effects that we pulled off, but I just didn't like the short that much, and I thought there was more we could do, and it wasn't really my kind of tone and what the voice that I wanted to have. So I had a pug, and that's where we came up with, and you're very good to have said that correctly, the El Chupacabra. Most people do not get that at all. But yeah, and I needed a really silly person to play this character name that I was, Madre and Padre, that had Padre. And I was like, just wanted someone funny. And at first I looked at some Austin people, and then Cameron and I were talking, and he remembered that movie too, the short film. And I was like, do you remember this guy, Jeremy, who played that bike cop? Like, he was hilarious. We're still friends on Facebook, So we reached out and brought him in, and he's the one who brought the Buckley. So that's all Jeremy. Jeremy kind of said, He brought a bolo tie, which is just a coincidence that this ended up tying into Joe Bob Briggs. He brought a bolo tie and all this and said, my name is, you know, in camera obscura, he said that my name is, you know, Tad Buckley. And then, so then I retroactively made Padre the last name Buckley. And then from that point forward, I was like, well, this is fun. Why don't we just put a Buckley in every movie we make? So the idea is that I kill Jeremy in every movie that I make. So if I'm directing, I will kill Jeremy. And so far, I've managed to kill him in every movie in one way, shape, or form. So even Scare Package 2, the whole, just to jump ahead, but the whole reason there's a Bo Buckley in there is so I can bring back Jeremy King to kill him. That's it. It's just my thing. And then the Pale Door, the same thing. You know, there's the Bill Buckley, and we make little side things. Like we had on Camera Obscura, we had a little side video that was Tad's Hardware, which was Tad Buckley. And in there, in the video, he talks about his great grandpappy Bill Buckley. And I was like, well, then that means in the Pale Door, you're Bill Buckley. So it's all a universe. And then the idea is that down the road, after I've made however many films that people still, for some reason, allow me to make, and then the last movie I'll make will be the Buckley Chronicles, and it'll be an old Jeremy sitting there as the last living Buckley, being interviewed in a documentary about how all of his brothers have died in all these tragic ways, and then it turns into like a little, you know, at the end it turns into like a slasher. In the last like 20 minutes he's like, wait a second, now I'm in a movie, and then he has to get killed, and that'll be the Buckley Chronicles. But it's just a silly joke that we're taking way too far for no reason, you know, so just to amuse ourselves. So yeah,
so it's just a little inside joke.
That's it,
you guys.
That's it. But more people are picking up
funny.
on it. People keep noticing that like the name Buckley appears. I mean, I think in the Pale Door or a couple of movies, there's like no one with a last name, but there's always a Buckley, you know. So it's deliberate, and we'll see. I mean, Tarantino does this a little bit with like the Vega brothers and stuff, and what he does. So it's like that, only dumber.
You meet Noah Segan on the set of the amazing film Starry Eyes, which we have a poster right over there, which you served as executive producer. He becomes another frequent collaborator and has roles in your films Camera Obscura, Scare Package, The Pale Door, and Blood Relatives, which he wrote, directed, and starred in. If this interview goes well, please tell Noah I love Blood Relatives and would love to have him on the show.
100%. I'll tell him. Yeah.
As a director, you are the creative lead on your films. You choose to work with actors and filmmakers who are also your friends. They are bound to have ideas on the material that don't work with your vision. How do you preserve a collaborative spirit and maintain your vision for the project while avoiding potential conflict?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's important to always realize that it is collaborative, truly is, and that best idea wins. You know, so if anyone comes up with something, you know, you have to kind of, you know, understand when to put blinders on and be like, right now it's too late. You know, there are some moments on set where it's like, we got to just move forward with this because we have such limited time. But as long as you create an environment where people feel comfortable to be honest, then, you know, I just get to be really lucky, honestly, because I have these wonderful people who are talented, and they're going to have ideas to their character. They're going to have things that they're going to bring to the table that I never would have thought of, because especially when you talk about actors, because they're the ones who are consuming this on a level that they're thinking about things that I've never even thought of. You know, I had some actors who they know what cereal they ate in the morning, you know, for that character. They know what happened to them in 4th grade, you know, that affects what they're going to do now. And some of that stuff is fascinating to me. And you know, one of the questions I always ask is like, does this feel right to you? Does this feel real to you? And they'll tell you, you know, like, no, this doesn't feel authentic. I don't feel like I would say this. I don't think I would do this. I think I'd be more upset. I think I'd be less upset. I think I'd be, and you have to kind of create that space where they feel comfortable to do that. And then you have to trust your initial judgment of like, okay, I trust them, but then I had this vision, and you find that balance. But as long as they feel comfortable, then, and they see you taking those ideas, then when you're like, look, I like it, I just don't think we can do this one right now, but keep them coming so they don't feel shut down, you can still move forward. They're going to respect you because they know that you are really seriously considering what's going on. And then you can still move forward when you need to, and you can take the ones when you can't. And then the next collaboration that you have, your hope, because you're now pals, you are bringing them in earlier, and now you've got months, plenty of time to rework a character trait or a situation or whatnot, and what's there. And it's a lot of fun, and then as a producer, I'm supporting those directors, but I'm at the same time, I'm just like taking notes. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm watching, Lucky McKee and the way he moves the camera around, and Stephen Lang, and I'm like, oh, that's so smart. Oh, I see what he's doing there, and what can I learn from that? And Emily Higgins and Noah and everybody, that's such a fun thing. Dennis and Kevin, STARRY EYES, like, it's such a fun thing and such a luxury to be able to see how other people work, so that you can take that and take it to the next level. It's just such a luxury.
You've said your first feature film, Camera Obscura, was difficult to make, and after that, you wanted to do something fun. The results were the instant cult classic and fan favorite horror comedy anthology Scare Package. You followed it up last December with Scare Package 2, Rad Chad's Revenge. How many gallons of blood were used, and how many piranhas died to bring us these films?
Yeah, that's funny. Again, I love it. I mean, I want to say, God goodness, you might actually know, because you probably read stuff that it's been a while. I would say it was like 20 to 25 gallons of blood on the first Scare Package, which on a per minute basis is like way up there. I mean, we were literally taking a fire, like this air container with blood, and spraying it down a hospital that they were going to tear down, which is actually where that picture behind me is. That's Dustin Rhodes is the impaler. So that wall, and you can see it's like torn apart. We were taking hammers and sledgehammers and just bashing the walls, because they were going to tear it down. So we had free reign, which was this dream of a location. And I just kept like, more blood, and people were like, why is there so much blood? I'm like, who cares? It's great. It's fun, and whenever we do gags, I'm always like, David Greathouse or Tate Steinseck or whomever's working makeup effects for us, I'm just like, push it more, double it, triple it, all this. So that's always a blast. And yes, sadly, we did lose two piranhas in shipment for the first Scare Package. And then, so in that scene where they're, we're pushing in on the piranha tank, there's only one live fish. The other two are myself and Alex Uding with a string puppeteering the fish in the shot, like we're in an Ed Wood film or something. But it was silly. But yeah, I mean, look, some casualties were made. We didn't mean to. We cared about the fish. PETA, I'm sorry. We tried. It was when they got shipped to us. We didn't kill them ourselves. So
scenes at Rad Chad's Horror Emporium were filmed at the now closed Vulcan Video in Austin. Where is the Rad Chad's neon sign that hung at the store?
In my storage unit. Yeah. Oh, I'm keeping that baby. There's a few props that I have. I have the puppet from Scare Package 2. That's not going anywhere. I have the Devil's Lake Impaler, like full outfit and everything. Like that's on a, that's not going anywhere. And then for Scare Package 2, I also took the TV that Sam comes out of. I kept that TV set up, and all that. So those are things that, when I get another office, I'm about to buy a new place, that I'm going to set everything up. But yeah, no, that sign was expensive. We had to get it repaired again, and before the second film. And I love it. Yeah, I'm keeping that thing as long as I possibly can. Yeah.
Between making the Scare Package films, you made the horror western The Pale Door. It's about cowboys versus witches and takes its name from a line in Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Haunted Palace. This show had its own challenges. Friday, May 24th, 2019 was the first day of principal photography. By Wednesday of the following week, you were evacuating your cast to a storm shelter as a tornado touched down nearby. Financing fell out. There were lightning strikes, flooding, and snake-filled blood pits. At one point, you even passed out from exhaustion. You've given many great interviews about this movie, but I'll only touch on it briefly. What's the story behind the Muppet horse head in The Pale Door?
The Muppet horse head? You mean it's on the stakes and everything that's there? Or
I think so. The question came from your friend Alex Cuervo, and that's all. Just Muppet horse head was all I was told.
Okay, so basically we couldn't afford to keep the horses because they're expensive, and we had already lost money during shooting. So we had to kind of get them off. Originally, they were going to stay on the horses a little longer and more stuff was going to happen. So then we had to kill the horses. So then we made these fake horse heads that were there. And we put them on stakes that were around when the burning was taking place. It was a big set piece and all this stuff. And, you know, we're working on it, and Becky Ingram and David Greathouse and Nate Bright, they're like making all these things. And Alex had one that I'm going through, and we're having to digitally touch up some stuff. And he hated this one, and he kept saying, there's like a Muppet. Like, why do you have a Muppet there as your horse head? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then at the last minute, I pulled the movie back, and I was so scared. I totally forgot about this until you just met. And then you had to say Cuervo because he was the one who brought it up. And then we had to redo a new visual effect on the scene because I was now so paranoid that people were going to think that there was just like an actual, you know, just like a fake little puppet that was there. I mean, they are puppets, but like didn't look like a puppet. And we had to make that work. So, but yes, that was Alex who made me paranoid at the last moments before that happened. Yeah, and I think the head had like floated in the blood pit and stuff too, and you know, just got all grimy and messed up and all that as well. Yeah.
Part of what makes you prolific as a producer is you're always finding ways to lift up your fellow filmmakers. Paper Street Pictures has the Paper Street podcast, which covers all aspects of indie production. You are also the co-founder of Blood Oath, a feature film consulting firm specializing in genre films. Your motto is making scary films less scary to make. There's so much online about how to be a director, but almost nothing about producing and financing a film. I'm sure there's 100 ways to finance 100 different movies, but I would like you to comment on a hypothetical. I have a script that's a creature feature set in the Florida Everglades. It won some awards and received attention from Fangoria to develop it. I film what I can in the swamps of Georgia for their tax incentives and shoot a few days in Florida to sell the Everglades. I get creative like you did with the Requiem. I film scenes at a closed water park and recruit crew from Full Sail. I send offers to actors A, B, and C and go after foreign sales. I sell the tax credits plus the foreign sales, then make up the difference with private equity investors. Is this how you build financing for a movie? Am I even close?
You are so much closer than the majority of people out there. Yes, that's exactly how you do it. That's a very well researched approach, because I mean, and I can't tell you how. So I'm on podcasts often talking about how to get a movie made, and what you just said, I have clearly said before, and you're discerning. I mean, these are the types of things. It's this idea that I want to make $1 million movie and someone's going to write me $1 million check is just not how the world works. It's just not how movies are made, and it's also just not smart, because that means that you're not taking advantage of where you can get grants and funds and tax credits and what location makes the most sense. You know, like you said, I mean, the Requiem, for all the problems with that movie, we were able to shoot at a water park and what could be and what was there, and had they let us finish all the VFX, it would have looked really good at the end. You know, the same with Shelby Oaks. You know, Chris Stuckman had a tie to the Ohio State Reformatory where they shot Shawshank, so we had to shoot there because that's a location that's so huge and so beautiful. We would have never been able to afford if we shot in Illinois or if we shot in New Mexico or whatever. So yeah, you know, every movie is this unique snowflake, and you have to think about these pieces. It's a pieces of a puzzle to put together to try and make happen, and everyone is different. So yes, like what you said, that hypothetical is pretty good, you know? I mean, that's the way to, I mean, if someone comes to me with like, here's what I've done and here's a list of things I've done, I'm like, okay, all right, now we're talking, because it's someone who's, if I hear that someone's taking that amount of time to research how to put something together, then I'm thinking they've taken that same amount of time in the script itself, and they're going to take that much time later, right? It's the people who show up and like, I got a script, I don't know what to do with it, and I'm like, okay, well, there's a ton of resources out there. you can do that. I don't, so if you want me to take over this whole thing, like, I'm going to own your movie then, you know what I mean? I'm going to do the whole thing then at this point. So why not push this ball up the hill a little further, and push this rock up the hill that is a little further. And then let's meet somewhere in the middle. And then that can really help, because I have my own rocks I'm pushing up hills, and so let's find ways to meet in the middle up at that apex, and then we can get that thing going, in a fun way. But yeah, no, I would say your hypothetical nailed it, completely nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I have to say this because I'm really proud of him. My dad actually, that script part was true. My dad actually wrote a script and he won awards and got
cool.
Fangoria. It was really cool. I just had to mention it because I'm proud of him.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, after, you should, if you guys still have it or whatever, I don't know if Tara, and if them at Fangoria still have it, but if Tara and them don't, let me know and send it to me. Yeah, I'd love to check it out.
Yeah. I've read you collect art, strange items, and movie props. Andy Warhol is a favorite. You have a Heaven's Gate Marshall Applewhite action figure, and you have a storyboard from Jaws featuring Quint's death scene signed by Joe Alves. Oh, goodness. This is a storyboard from Martin Scorsese's remake of Cape Fear. It features Max Cady's death scene, and it was signed by Robert De Niro. What is your most prized piece in your collection, and is there an item you want but haven't found yet?
I want that. That's what what are you talking about? That's amazing. I love Cape Fear. Just that that was a movie that creeped me out. The idea that someone could like hide under the car this whole like that's scary. That was scary stuff. And it's a great remake. One of the better examples of a remake that's better than the original. Goodness, yeah, I definitely have some props that I would kill to have. I mean, one that I'll never get, because, and actually there was just an auction recently, but it was just so, they're Rick Baker's spider gremlin from Gremlins 2, like the full animatronic one. That thing is so gnarly, and I think it's so cool. That would be amazing. I am always searching for more Jaws props. They're just so expensive. To get anything original Jaws is there's just too many fans. But I have some other things, like there's a movie called Batteries Not Included that Steven Spielberg produced, and those the actual mechanical batteries not included aliens I think are really, really cool. Those show up every now and then. I obviously have a couple frogs from Magnolia. That's really important to me because that movie and what that was. But goodness, my favorite, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I do love those storyboards because, again, it's from Jaws, and that's such an amazing thing. That's so cool that you guys have those. I mean, I have a tooth from the shark that was used in the Universal ride that jumped up, one of the main big teeth. I have one of those, which is pretty gnarly. That's kind of fun. I do have a piece of the soap that was in the plane scene when he opens the briefcase in Fight Club. One of those soap pieces. Some of it melted a little bit, but I put some stuff back in there. But I have the package, but melted inside the package, which is really unfortunate. But I have that, which is pretty gnarly. I have one of the critter molds from Critters, which is pretty cool. God, I wish it was in a place where I could look and be like, oh, I have, I could name up all this stuff. But I mean, you guys, I mean, I could already see some really, really cool stuff here already. So that you have, I love that little critter right there.
We named him Buddy.
Love it. Love it. And when Leonardo DiCaprio tells people that he's never been in a sequel, let's please remind him about the Critter sequels, because he was in a sequel. Like, sorry, Leo, now you did it, and like let's acknowledge the truth here. So yeah, but I love that. That's brilliant.
Do you want to reboot the Critters? I heard about that at one point.
I do. Yeah, yes. So man, you have done your research again. Yeah, there was a time when I was in talks, and that was something I was trying to do. And I do have a Critters reboot, kind of a reboot / sequel-ish in a way, that people would be surprised. Is that and how it ties together? But that's definitely a passion project. I think I think there's like a whole world with that could be really, really fun in the Critter space, because I think they're scary and funny. And I obviously love that combination. So that would be a dream project. So yes, I very much would love to make that happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your movies have included witches, slashers and serial killers, vampires and goo monsters. But what about zombies? Do you prefer fast zombies or slow zombies?
Oh goodness. So here's what I'm going to say, because it's a good question and I get why people ask it. I'm fine either way. I love 28 Days Later. I think that's great. And I love, Night of the Living Dead. And I think they both work in different worlds. I will say I am working on a project now that is not like zombie, but it's a reimagining of zombie type things. That's all I can say. But it touches on the zombie world in a fun way. But yeah, I'm actually rewatching some of The Walking Dead right now, just some of those early seasons, because I'm working on trying to put a TV show together and trying to take notes and learn from when it was really, really good. It was so good at the start and what was happening there, and trying to take down some notes. And I'm still enjoying the hell out of it, And Last of Us is my favorite show on TV right now. So I'll take zombies. I'm not zombied out. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to play the game of Last of Us before I watch the show.
Oof,
Yeah,
man, it's scary all together. The game and the show, everything,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I've
So
heard.
yeah, man, be careful.
What was your first tattoo and your last tattoo?
My first tattoo was this little, well, if you count it, it was just the text that says "Remember Sammy Jenkins," which is from Memento. And he tattooed that to himself. But the first like full tattoo was this Andy Warhol skull tattoo that I have on my arm. Cool. And that's more of a personal thing with my family and whatnot. And again, you mentioned I love art, as you know, and Warhol, so that makes sense. I would have a Warhol tattoo. And then the last one was, I can't really pull it up here, but like I did get part of an Evil Dead that I'm not fully finished. That's coming up my arm. That is from Evil Dead 1, where he's holding up the chainsaw, that image from the key art. So I have that. And then my next one, it actually could be a critter. I've thought about it being a critter that would kind of come up this side. And then but there's also, I love Drive. I love the movie Drive. So I thought about like the scorpion jacket, as another option. So I don't know. We'll see what I end up doing, but I haven't gotten one in a while. Been too busy.
You publish movie watch lists on Letterboxd, you curate music playlists on Spotify, and you've collected film scores for years. Do you believe more songs have been written about love, lust, or heartbreak?
Oof. I think, yeah, that's interesting. Like, I think love, loss, and heartbreak is all together. I think that's all the same thing in some ways, right? Because even love can be heartbreaking, even when it's good, so I think that's all there. And so yeah, and I'm actually like, so as I was writing, I'm making my list, I'm finishing my list of my favorite songs of 2022 right now. So I still do that. I made that Spotify list for 13 years now, and I go like 1 through 100. And yeah, no, I love it. I mean, music is a huge part of my life, and it's something that drives me creatively and gets me in the right zone as far as what's there. And yeah, and there's also a lot of movies named after songs, which I think is a really interesting thing. And so I kind of like that little sub genre, not a subgenre, but that little factoid, if you will. But yeah, I mean, all these songs, some of the greatest songs ever are written about love, because it's what pulls that passion out of you, and that's what's easier to write about. You don't write about the things that are okay. You don't write about the things that you just pass by on the street. You write about the things that have a lasting impact on you, and nothing has a longer lasting impact than love, right? So
yeah, right now I'm listening to the bands The Lovely Eggs, Rat Boys, and Sunset Rubdown. What bands are you excited about right now?
Oh, that's fun. Goodness. So here, I'm actually going to pull it up and we'll look at some of my current lists that I have for my new. So like some of my top, I love the new Arcade Fire album, Beach House. I do like Drake. Geographer is a band that I love that not a lot of people know. Don't listen to as much. Nation of Language, I think, is a really, really wonderful band. Sharon Van Etten, love her. Florence and the Machine. You know, We Were Promised Jetpacks is a really fun band. They're a Scottish kind of like slight punk but indie Scottish band, and I love them. I've been listening to them a ton, and their new album's great as well. But I'm still Arcade Fire, The National, Bon Iver. I'm that kind of like, you know, mid 2000s hipster dude. That's still part of my DNA that I can't quite gravitate from yet.
Will you support my ongoing campaign to ask Disney to make a horror film set in the Star Wars universe?
100%. I mean, I was still really bummed when, you know, when they didn't really go. I mean, look, I love what Sam Raimi did in the Multiverse of Madness, but I really wanted to see what Scott Derrickson and Cargill were going to do, you know, and knowing Cargill a little bit, you know, I'd heard some stories and they were going to go even more horror. So that would have been really exciting. So that was like my first hope that like maybe that could open some doors. So you do that in the Marvel universe, and then maybe there could be something in Star Wars. But man, there is such an opportunity to do horror in Star Wars. And I mean, you were talking about two of my favorite things in the world. Yeah, that would be the dream. But I just think Disney is they're too scared to take those types of risks. Like they have, you know, 4-quadrant movies and stuff and whatever. And I think there's this idea in their head that Star Wars is this demographic and horror's not it. And I just think that that's a bummer because there's such an opportunity, because there's scary stuff going on.
Yeah.
You know, it's all there. So yeah, no, I will 100% let me know. I'll retweet it. I'll post it, whatever you need me to do. I'm all about it. Yeah.
Yeah, this last question is a Sophie's choice. 2 must die so that 1 may live. The scene, number 1, the scene where Alice jumps off the cliff in The Last of the Mohicans. 2, the scene where the shark attacks Alex Kintner in Jaws. Or 3, the scene where Claudia smiles at the camera at the end of Magnolia. 2 must die so that 1 may live.
What are you doing to me, Dex? Like, what is happening? Oh my goodness! Like, why does one of those have to die?
Two of them.
Two of those
have to die.
What is? I can't even. I can't. I mean, okay. So here's what I'll say. Oh goodness, why are you? Okay. I'm doing this because you've done. Normally, I'd be like, I refuse to answer this question on a basis of just loving these movies too much. But you've done so much research that I will abide and I will go through this. So I'm going to cheat in one way, because the Alex Kintner death that is depicted in Jaws is nowhere near what the actual one that they filmed, and they made them cut down. So it's nowhere near as graphic. So I'll cut that because I still want them to put in the original Alex Kintner death that is super bloody and like over the top. So and there's pictures of that online if you find them. It's frightening. I haven't seen it. I don't know that anybody's actually seen it, but I've heard and read about it. So that allows me to kind of kick that one out. And then, look, you would think that this Last Mohicans is an easy one to kick, but you were talking about one of my favorite scores of all time. It makes me cry every time. I still, like, if my girlfriend leaves for a minute or something, I'll still quote Daniel Day-Lewis. I'm like, I will find you. I don't know where. You know, I still quote Last Mohicans all the time. And the music there, it's just so beautiful and breathtaking. And Michael Mann is just at his absolute peak. But there is not much in this world that has an impact to me that Melora Walters' look does at the end of Magnolia, because that was when, and I even get, it's cheesy, I get it, but I had chills when it happened. I get chills thinking about it because I thought she was looking at me. Like, I really did. Like, I thought at the end of that movie, she looked at my soul and it was like, you have to do this. And so that is the one I have to keep, because it is the reason why I get to be so lucky and talk to you about this and have these interviews and get to do this for a living, you know, and that's because of that look. So that look will always be kind of my top, I suppose. But that was hard. That was so hard. I love these things so much, you know. So that's difficult, man. That was tricky.
Is there anything you want to ask me before we go?
I mean, well, now I'm just like, how much time do you spend researching all this? This is some, do you, so I had watched one of the movies I thought, but like, you know, this is just, it's amazing to me to see like what you're able to do. Like, how did you decide to make this show? And then from there, you know, what are you looking to do? Where do you want to take the show? What do you want to do from here? What do you, I mean, do you want to make movies yourself? Like,
Well, actually, I'm gonna answer the last question first and then continue. But the last question for if I want to make movies, I actually want to be a producer.
okay.
I want to make movies. I was on the set of Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 when I was like this big. And I had never missed a chance to go on one of my dad's movie sets because he works in the movies. I've just been surrounded by the movie business all my life. So yes, I was bitten by the bug very early and I really want to. I also want to be a writer. I've also considered directing, and I think I'm gonna me and my dad have been coming up with this short. It's a trailer for like basically this kid who has realized that they'll always be on the naughty list, kidnaps Santa and tortures him.
Fun.
It's elevated.
Yeah.
And I'm considering directing that, and I think I will. And then so what I want to do with this show is really, this is me. I'm trying to get my connections so I can really do well in the movie business later. And also just I have a lot of fun with it. I really do have a lot of fun with this show, and I plan on doing it for as long as I can before school or work hits me like a truck. And just learn. I want to learn about the business. I want to know the business fully before I get into it. And then why I started this show was there was a moment, it was like right at the beginning of the pandemic. My dad and my grandmother were sitting down watching a documentary about Kane Hodder. I sat down and watched, I think, the last 2/3 of it, and I fell in love with just the Kane Hodder, and I was like, I want to talk to that guy. My dad was like, well, you can't just talk to him. Let's find a reason to. And we were like, why not interview him? We met him over a convention that was like a Zoom convention. I asked him, how many interviews do I have to have to interview you? And he said, 5. Let's do 5. And I said, all right, I'll get back to you on that. You are my 21st one. And he's finally agreed to talk about an interview.
Amazing. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And he's a joy. I hired him on a movie called Monster to be a stunt coordinator for us on that, and put his name up because I was such a Friday the 13th fan, and just think he's such a joy. That's so cool. That's such a cool thing. And I love, that, obviously it's really cool too that you have parents that are like supportive of it, not only, like facilitating it, because my mom still to this day is concerned about me in the film industry. She's like, are you sure you're gonna, like, what happens if you don't make another movie? And I'm like, well, I don't get paid then, Mom, and what this means. And so that's really, really cool. And yeah, and look, I mean, I was a writer first. I became a director to protect my writing, and became a producer to protect my directing. But the writer producer role right now in particular is a very pivotal role. It's because TV, that's all TV is that writer producer role, and that's the showrunner role essentially, and what that's become. And it's pivotal. It's pivotal. And I think so many people overlook producing, because producing is, you are a filmmaker. I mean, you're making everything. It just doesn't necessarily have when people think about their favorite writers and actors and directors, they don't think about their favorite producers. But there's a reason why at the end of the Oscars, when they give out Best Picture, it's the producer who gets the Best Picture at the end, right? So because they are shepherding this from start to finish, all the way through, making so many little decisions along the way that so many times get overlooked. And it can feel a little lonely being a producer sometimes and what that is. But it's such a luxury because you get to put your hands into everything and every aspect of filmmaking. And I think that's wonderful. And I mean, clearly, you know, you've got one hell of a bright future, man. So like, I'm excited. And then make sure I'll make sure, I can't wait. I want to watch you interview. I want to watch that one with Kane, which is that's super special. And what a cool story to have that happen. That's magical, man. I'm just so impressed. Yeah, I'm so impressed.
It's awesome. Thank you so much. Scare Package 2, Red Chad's Revenge, Sorry About the Demon, Blood Relatives, Pale Door, Old Man, and everything you touch is amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I appreciate you all being patient. You know, I almost wish I didn't give you that much time to research, because now it's like, oh, you knew too much. You knew too much. But just, it means a lot. And please, you know, stay in touch. You know, you guys have my email. Stay in touch. Let me know. You know, when you're trying to do different things, I'm happy to bring you on a set, depending where you're located at times. You know, whatever, you can come on a set with us as well. So just let me know, and let's figure stuff out. All right.
All right.